Welcome everyone to your Daily Wreck. I'm Jason X.
And I'm Kevin Graham.
And today we're gonna do a recap.
Recap?
Because for fucking once we're both on the same goddamn page.
We're both on the same page. It's true.
Where we took in a pop cultural event.
Yeah.
Of watching Stranger Things Season 2
Season
right
2.
when it came out.
Or as they call it, Stranger Things 2.
2.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what it was dubbed as.
Yes, that is true.
Like the second movie in a franchise.
Yes, and that is how they wanted this to come off as a sequel.
Right.
Instead of a second season.
And it felt very much like a sequel.
Yes, it did.
In many ways, which we will get into.
We are going to dive right into this series. Now, what were your expectations going into season 2 or Deuce of Stranger Things?
I'm a firm believer that anytime you have a season 2, a sequel, a prequel, you should never go in immediately looking to compare it to the first thing.
Right. Because it's not going to be that.
Unless, you have very low expectations in comparing it to the first thing. So I wasn't going in expecting, like, the same type of story or, like, I was expecting, like, a different adventure, basically. Right. A different experience, sort of like an extension of the first season. We're going to find out more about what's been going on with Will, what, the dynamic of the group is now, and the general fallout within the town. Like, that was sort of my expectation going into this season.
Right.
And what about you?
I would say just about the same. I mean, when we left season 1 ended with Will going back and forth between the Upside Down and the current world. And then
there was some flickering going on, and you saw Slug get coughed up.
Correct.
Right. And
then you also saw that Hopper was having interaction with 11, who had disappeared.
Right. Or that's at least the way that they had framed it up. Like, he was leaving food out for her out in the woods.
Right.
You didn't really know why or what was going on with that.
Until you saw that it was Eggos, and then everybody could put
was
two
like,
and two together.
Eggos.
Yes, exactly. So, going into it, I was like, okay, so we are obviously, and from obviously the trailers that we saw, where we saw the Ghostbusters costumes on Halloween kind of thing, and we're like, genius.
Perfect frame
timing
for this type of show.
Awesome 80s throwback.
Right.
And that's the thing, is like, I was 100 expecting that 80s feel.
They leaned into the 80s hard this season.
They really did.
Because before it was like, this is a show that takes place in the 80s. Where this season it was like, this is basically a show about the 80s.
This is 16 Candles.
There was a lot. Yeah.
Alternate dimensions and
monsters.
Yeah. So before we kind of dive in to everything, do you want to give your overall opinion?
Sure. Coming out of it immediately, I didn't feel the same way about it that I felt about season 1.
I agree with that.
Season 1, hands down, is one of my favorite seasons of television ever. This season, again, I wasn't looking to compare it to season 1. I wasn't even expecting like the same level of quality. However, coming out, I just didn't feel as excited as I thought I was going to feel. And I didn't hate it overall.
Right.
I actually...
That's important.
I actually did like it overall. However, the more time I had to dwell on it, and in talking about it with Christy, we both realized that we had a lot of the same feelings while watching it, while not really saying anything to one another while we watched it.
Yeah, I mean, the way that me and the wife kind of compared it is that if Stranger Things Season 1 is a 10, Stranger Things Season 2 is about a 7.
Okay, I would have said about a 6.5. Maybe a 6.
Okay. There's a significant drop, and a lot of that has to do with the familiarity of the environment going into it. Because watching season 1, everything is new.
Yeah,
Everything that they throw at you that's an 80s reference, you pop for.
Right, exactly.
Because you're like, oh, shit, this is great. This is a great throwback.
But they were also very subtle, I feel.
Exactly. Whereas in season 2, you know the area, you know the town, you know that they're going to be doing this. So you're waiting to get the same pop, but it's less of a surprise.
They're not really giving you a new environment.
Like, I found myself overall popping most for the episode titles.
Right, yeah.
Than the actual content within the episode. Right. Which I guess is a problem. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, they're talking about Dig Dug. Oh, they're talking about Mad Max.
Yeah.
They're hitting all these 80s key points.
There's little elements that get sprinkled throughout the show that you pick up on and you go, oh, man, that's fantastic. I love that. And it gives you that sense of nostalgia. The problem I had with it was I felt like they focused more on doing that than really formulating a well-thought-out story.
Yes.
Because one of the biggest issues I had with this season was...
Oh, wait, hold on.
Oh.
Spoilers. 3, 2, 1. If you haven't guessed yet.
If you haven't guessed
we're gonna
yet.
Be talking about
this is a spoiler-heavy episode. One of the biggest problems I had with this season was there were a lot of directions that they could have gone in with the characters, with the stories, with everything going on. And it almost felt like they were planting the seeds along the way to really make you think that was going to happen. And then nothing ever happened. Like, case in point, I think there was 3 big examples of that.
Okay.
So, Bob,
yes.
What a great guy. What a great guy.
What? Okay. Well, hold on.
Okay.
Well, what a great guy, except
for the first 8 episodes he was in.
Well, here's the thing. And I think I told you this before I actually finished the series. Watching Bob and watching his progression throughout the show, I was expecting the turn.
Right. From the very beginning, I'm like, something seems off about Bob. Bob, I feel, isn't who he says he is.
Right.
So I start formulating this idea in my mind. I'm like, what if Bob is actually
an agent
for the Hawkins lab?
Right.
Maybe
which would make way more sense
because he's in with Joyce. He's getting closer to the kids, and he has that conversation with Will in the car, where Will's explaining to him the visions he's having.
100% I'm with you on this.
And he's saying, I don't know what to do about this. I'm scared. And Bob goes, when I was a kid, and he explains the story of him and a clown who scared him. He said he had nightmares, and then one night in his dream, he just said, no, I'm not going to deal with this anymore. Turned and looked at the clown and said, give me what you got, and took it all. And it didn't bother him anymore.
It seemed like a mind fuck for Will, to accept the monster to bring him into the world because that's what he wanted to do.
And the entire time, I'm like, I feel like this is the type of dude who's probably somehow still associated with Dr. Brenner from season 1, who we don't know if he's alive or dead. Spoiler alert: there's a good chance that he's still alive,
I guess.
So I was thinking, he's an agent of the Hawkins lab. He was in close with Dr. Brenner's team. He's using his relationship with Joyce to try to scoop dirt on her and the kids. And he's trying to convince Will to give in to this monster so that they can further their research or whatever. And I'm like,
we are on the same page.
So, and then
turns out
he's just a really nice guy. That's all it is Bob is just a really nice guy who died a heroic death.
Yes.
He sacrificed... Well, no, I mean, I can't say he sacrificed himself.
Listen, Moppy fucked him up.
Oh, my God, dude. And, you saw that death coming a mile away.
100%. As soon as he left, you knew he wasn't making it.
You knew he wasn't going to make it. And that's another thing that really annoyed me about this season was nothing felt unexpected.
Yes.
Everything felt predictable.
The mystery was gone.
You kind of knew you knew what was going to happen 5 steps ahead most of the time.
Well, and here's the thing I talked about the wife about it. In season 1, when Will went missing,
right,
and Will was gone, you didn't actually know.
You didn't know what was going on.
What happened to Will until like the second or third last episode of the season.
Because the thing I feel season 1 did so well was they really they continued to build upon this element of mystery every episode.
Mm-hmm.
So everything just kind of kept ramping up.
Mm-hmm.
And then once it got to the season finale, it was just like this beautiful explosion.
Yes.
Season 2, and understandably so, like many TV shows go through this where they kind of have their ebbs and flows, their ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like having the additional episodes hurt this show more.
And I guess we'll just get into it because this was the biggest pain point of the season for me.
Right.
Was the 11 backstory.
The 11 backstory.
Because there was an entire episode dedicated to her backstory.
Right.
Meeting number 8.
Number 8, which we see a glimpse of in the opening of the season.
Shot.
Which you watch and you go, well, this is kind of interesting. I wonder where they're going to go with it.
Which you think like, okay, so 8 is obviously the villain of the series.
Which 8 ties into a theory I had, again, one of those things that I felt they planted the seed, but that never went forward with, which we'll get into in a second here.
Okay. But that whole episode of her going with her and then leaving her
was completely pointless.
And the wife put it brilliantly. And she's like, "Oh, you know what that episode was, right?" And I'm like, "No, I have no fucking clue what that episode was." And she goes, "It's a spin-off show."
That's a great way to put it.
Like, they did that episode specifically to give number 8 their own show. Their own spin-off show.
That's a great way to put it. It absolutely felt like a backdoor pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Because if you take that episode out of the season, you miss nothing.
Absolutely
There's nothing you miss.
There's nothing.
That I mean, maybe a couple of points here and there, but that episode really added no value, I felt.
I agree with you.
And kind of in tying in with 8, so we see her in the opening scene.
Right.
We get the 2 new kids, Max and Billy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Billy was his name? Billy.
I think Billy, yes.
Just terrible hair and a very shitty mustache.
Yes.
Billy was.
Wow.
And then Max, what we find out is his stepsister. All the kids have a crush on her because she's like this badass gamer chick.
Right.
And then they want to hang out with her, and then they try to bring her into the group. There's tension, of course, because why the fuck wouldn't there be tension? But all that tension was completely unnecessary. Max and Billy are useless fucking characters.
Yes.
They added no value to the show. The only reason I felt like her character existed was to provide tension within the group of Mike, Dustin, and Lucas. Because there was the love triangle between Dustin, her, and Lucas right. Which really, in the end, added nothing to what was going on.
No,
and it was additional story that did not need to be there.
The only thing I can say that it did add was it created a bridge for the Dustin Steve friendship, to occur.
Which, okay, it was very weird about what they did with Steve this season too.
Very strange.
But I want to stay with Max here for a second.
Thing,
it was a fuck you. So and then we get the story of Max and her stepbrother, and there's all this grief here and like this tension. Like he's pissed off about being in this shitty Indiana town. They lived out in California, and he's like this really greasy, gross looking like teenage dude who's like, I don't know, like fucking listening to Ted Nugent and driving his Trans Am around town. The entire time, and you see Max and Lucas start kind of interacting with one another. And then he sees them interacting with one another.
Right.
So when he looks at them and he goes, I don't want you hanging out with that kid.
Right.
She's like, why? He goes, you don't hang out with people like that.
Right.
Now, for those that might be unaware, Lucas is black.
Yes. Which was
however,
the backdoor social issue.
My first thought with that had nothing to do with race.
Really?
My first thought with that was, they introduced us to another kid with powers in the episode 1.
Right.
These 2 new kids just randomly drop into town a year after this big event happens, and he doesn't want his sister hanging out with one of the boys who was involved in that. What are the chances are Max and Billy are also kids with powers that are somehow...
Oh, wow. You fucking went deep with it.
Yeah,
I didn't get any of that.
That are somehow still tied. Like, because, listen, if there's one Hawkins Institute, there's at least 10 more hidden out throughout the country.
Wow, you fucking went deep with that.
So I'm like, what are the chances are these kids are part of, like, a California base, moved out, and, like, they are a part of Hawkins.
Season 5 of Stranger
Right?
Things.
So I'm like,
Kevin Graham.
he wants to keep her away from the group. He's not just talking about Lucas. He's talking about you stay away from the group.
See, and that's...
And they kind of planted those seeds, I felt, throughout the season. It wasn't as blatant.
You gotta remember it was the 80s.
Right. Which we then later find out, no, he's just a racist asshole.
Yes.
Like, that's all it was. Again, a completely unneeded story. The one other story element that I thought was going somewhere that it didn't go anywhere. So the private investigator. Maury.
I don't know.
It was Brett Gelman, the comedian. So, and I have enjoyed Brett Gelman's work on the various podcasts and TV shows I've seen and heard him on. However, what a fucking creeper. So he comes in as this private investigator who is investigating the missing persons case, which we find out is Barb. Yeah, so he's
an awesome callback.
Awesome. Which I was like, okay, like this is a part of the fallout that I would have expected,
right,
where we are going to find justice for Barb.
Right.
And then he's bringing up all these like scenarios of, I think that there's a Russian girl in this town, and
right,
Russian spies, and
communism,
and he's hinting upon a lot of things that happen with the Hawkins lab. But Hopper, because he's supposed to keep his mouth shut, says, "Dude, you're out of your fucking mind. Go away. Stop digging into this. You're not going to find anything." However, Nancy and Jonathan, they catch wind of everything that Hawkins is still doing, or not doing, rather.
Right.
And they know about this guy, so they go to him. Now, the entire time they're interacting with him, I'm like, this guy seems shady.
Right.
Like, not only does he seem creepy as fuck and highly inappropriate, but he seems really fucking shady.
So you were looking for the double cross.
I swear, like, I thought he was going to turn out to be a Russian spy. Because then there's the part where he goes to pour a drink and he pulls out a bottle of Russian vodka.
Makes sense.
And he even makes the comment, boy, those commies sure know how to make a bottle of vodka. Or whatever. So I'm like, so he's getting all this information from Nancy and Jonathan about the lab, which the lab wants to keep out of the hands of the Russians because we're in the midst of the Cold War. And this dude is going to turn out to be a Russian spy. And, like, this whole thing is going to happen. Turns out, none of that happens. No. He's just a weird pederast who encourages teenagers to have sex in his apartment, which, again, a completely unnecessary fucking storyline.
Well, I guess it gets it gets the two together, but
in a very highly inappropriate way.
Yes. But at the same time, you're like, I mean, at this point, and it fucking sucks because in season 1, I left season 1 not liking Steve.
Which I think you should have.
I go into season 2 loving Steve.
Loving Steve because it turns out that he's America's favorite mom.
And he gets fucked over.
He does. Time and time again.
Throughout the entire season, he gets completely fucked in the ass.
He gets shit on constantly.
And it's one of those things where if we have to predict a season 3.
Right. Which they are going to do.
We left season 2 with the big spider fucking shadow gimmick thing over the school at the longest fucking prom scene I've ever seen.
That dragged on.
Goddamn television. Drove me fucking nuts how long that fucking prom scene was just to have Levin and Mike kiss at the end.
Everybody kissed.
Another thing as well is, holy the shit, why the fuck did Max stick around? She got shat on the whole fucking show.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the way that she was treated by her brother, the way that the boys treated her, just like,
right.
Why would she stick around? There's no reason for her to fucking stick around. And that bugged me too. Because if I was her, I'd be like, well,
fuck this place.
Guys.
Yeah. Fuck you, and your ass. Overall, I think the first handful of episodes that we watched, I enjoyed because we were still kind of in that this is new territory. Mm-hmm. And I started formulating all these possibilities of where they were going to go. Mm-hmm. I feel like towards the middle of the season, ramping up into the end is where they kind of lost me.
And I think this is another example of the losing of the mystery, kind of bit.
Yeah,
is I think it was by episode 3 or 4 that they figured out what was happening with the crops.
Right.
If you push that to like episode 8 or 9 to where they figure out there's a tunnel system which is killing the crops because of this and that and this and that, and you extend that mystery of what's happening to the crops and how the two worlds are combining, it adds so much to the show. It was almost like they gave you nothing to figure out. They just gave you, this is how it is.
This is what's going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like we said kind of in the beginning, overall, it's not season 1. It's not bad.
It's not bad. What were some of your favorite parts? Let's end this on a good note.
On a good note.
On a positive.
I thought, like I stated earlier, the episode titles, amazing.
Okay.
Especially where you get like where Hopper's in the tunnels and the episode title is Dig Dug. Like you get that 80s reference on top of an actual reference to events that is happening within the show. Amazing job when it comes to that.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the score. I thought the music.
Score was fantastic again.
And I will say, the best part of the entire season, my favorite moment out of all 9 episodes, might be a throwaway moment to a lot of people. But it was the greatest thing I may have ever seen in television history.
Okay.
Very throwaway.
Okay.
Dustin.
Yeah.
Goes and knocks on the door at Mike's house. Mike's dad answers the door.
Yeah.
And asks if Mike is there.
Right.
And he says, I don't know. And then Dustin literally says, you're no help at all. You son of a bitch.
Dustin had some great one-liners.
Fucking tremendous.
Yeah.
Because everybody was thinking, this guy is fucking useless.
Oh, he was useless. And I will say, Christy hated it, but I thought it was spectacular and almost a redeeming moment for him. But the moment where Billy goes to Nancy's house to look for Max and the kids.
Oh, and he hits on the girl?
And he hits on Nancy's mom.
Yeah.
Because I was like, that's pretty fucking 80s.
That's very
and that's
80s.
pretty good.
Yes.
So yeah, I like that. I that interaction with Dustin and Nancy's father and Mike's
so
father,
good.
I really enjoyed.
So good.
Again, top notch with the score.
Dustin and Steve.
Dustin
Big
and
shout
Steve, tag team in the 80s.
Yes.
I even though I thought it was weird, I did kind of enjoy Steve's interaction with all the characters this time.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, and again, even though they were a little heavy on them, I thought that I always enjoy a good 80s reference.
Yeah.
So they had me with that. The Ghostbusters stuff alone
was very
like
good.
The interaction they had when they all showed up at the school.
Oh, nobody else was in costume?
No, well, it kind of felt like my Halloween night.
Yeah.
Going out in the bars and stuff. But no, when they show up and both Lucas and Mike are Venkman.
Oh, yes.
And he's like, you're supposed, and like the entire time I'm like, he's going to say it.
Yep.
He's going to say he's supposed to be Winston. And
Yep.
he's going to be like, no, fuck off. And they went there and I'm like, that's great.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kudos to him for being like, well, I got to be the black guy just because I am the black guy. Like,
yeah.
I want to be Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Let him be Bill Murray.
Right?
That's great.
Why not? If they were to announce Stranger Things Season 3 dropping October 31st, 2018, how excited are you?
I'm still excited.
You're still excited.
On
a scale to 1 to 10, how excited are you compared to how excited you were this season?
Going into this season, I'd say I was about a 10.
I would agree with you.
I'm probably about a 7 now.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'm at about a
That's
7
fair.
level of excitement.
It's something where I will definitely watch.
Right.
I will not binge it.
I probably wouldn't binge it.
And I would definitely not do what I did this season, which is take a day off
Right.
to see it. So, with that being said, I think that's a pretty fair, honest review of Stranger Things Season 2 or Stranger Things The Deuce.
The Deuce.
We are looking forward to more. It's one of those things where typically, especially if you're going by the Indiana Jones model, the first one's good, the second one sucks balls, the third one is the best of all.
Is the best of all.
So for this episode of the Daily Rec, I'm Jason X.
I'm Kevin Graham.
And fuck Three Musketeers.